Hey everybody, it's Jaha Zainabu, and welcome to Storytime with Jaha Zainabu 44 Part 3 slash 365. So today I'm going to talk about Alzheimer's, talk about dementia. I used to work as a caregiver for the better part of 25 years. And most of my clients had dementia or some form of dementia, usually Alzheimer's. And that is a very special undertaking. It's a very special job. It's not a job that you do because you need the money. One, it doesn't pay well. The other is that it takes a lot of patience and it takes a special kind of person to do a job like that because it's a lot. It's a lot mentally, it's a lot physically, it's a lot spiritually. It's a lot. Um, it is something that always came, I want to use the word easy here, but it was never easy, but it was something that um, I am that special person for that job. That's real. I am. I cared about my clients. I cared about the work that I did. And, but at a time, you know, um, my first client, and he wasn't really a client, he was family. It was my grandfather. My grandfather had Alzheimer's. And um, let's see, how did this happen? I moved in with my grandparents after I was about, I don't know how old I was. I was young. I might have been 23 years old, maybe. And I moved in with my grandparents. I was coming out of a marriage, that didn't work. And so it was easy, for me to just kind of stay with my grandparents and take care of my grandfather while with my grandmother. Um, and that's was my first experience with Alzheimer's. And it was hard because it was my grandfather. He wasn't some client that I met through an agency. He was my grandfather. And one of the things that happens is that, they remember things from a long time ago, but not necessarily 2 days ago. I wrote this poem that I want to share, and I'll talk about it more, but it's called Every Night Papa Died. Granddaddy didn't remember no yesterday. Every night he walked up to the front window, stared through the sheer curtain. Papa ain't home. Papa ain't home yet. Ain't Papa come home by now? He asked every night, every night. Grandmama ain't convinced his mind that far gone. That far gone. Papa ain't home. Ain't Papa home? See, Willis, now you know your Papa dead, Grandmama say, without lifting her eyes from her puzzle book. Dead? Papa dead? Water start to swell round Granddaddy's eyes. I help him to his chair. Dead? Papa dead? T. Willis, you know your Papa dead. Granddaddy bow his head, wipe his face with his hands. Hard thing to watch. A boy find out his Papa done died. Ain't never coming home again. He dead? My Papa dead? He say slowly, shaking his head and wiping away his tears. Then dinner time. Then time for bed. Then everything's all right. Till the next night when Papa dies again. And that went on for a long time. And my grandmother, on her end, they've been married for a long time. They had 12 children. And it was very difficult for her to accept that the man that she knew and loved, his body was there, but his mind was not. And that's a hard thing to accept. It's a hard thing to see that. It was a hard thing for her to see that she was kind of alone in that relationship. I mean, she wasn't, but in a way, in the way that she was used to, she was. And so and it would come out in ways that sometimes that did not look so loving. Like, come on now, your daddy dead. Come on now. Um, but it was, and it was challenging. I am glad that I had that time with my grandfather, and eventually dealing with dementia with my grandmother as well. Um, Actually, that part kind of threw me, dealing with my grandmother, because with my grandfather, when I moved in, I knew what I was, not all of what I was getting into, but I knew that he did have dementia. And there were so many things that was like, he would do stuff like, he rarely wanted to leave the house. And so we would, when it would be his doctor's appointment, it'd be incredibly challenging getting him in the car to go to the doctor. And so, let's say his appointment is at 12. We'd have to get started like 7 o'clock. Okay. So getting him dressed and convincing him to go outside and then get in the car. But, when he'd get outside, he would sit on the porch. And so I would sit on the porch with him, and I talk to him, and, I just listen to him, or I just be silent, or we just sit in silence. And eventually he'd step up and go onto the walkway, and eventually he'd get in the car. But this whole process took hours and hours. And so I remember a couple of times he got in the car, my grandmother drove, and I was sitting in the back seat, and then we got to the doctor, and we get all the way to the doctor. So now you have to get out of you have to kind of do it again, because you have to get out of the car and you have to go into the office. So we get all the way to the doctor, and he says, y'all go ahead, I'm gonna stay in the car. Like, we can't do this without you, dude. At one time, I remember the doctor actually came out to the car, like with his stethoscope and the little thing you knock the knees on, all that. And he just treated him there because, I mean, and thank God, for a doctor with that kind of patience and that kind of generosity. So there were those times. And sometimes sometimes we're funny, not funny, but kind of funny. He knew that his mind, I think that he knew that his mind was like not all the way there, but he would argue about everything. Like, throw something at him, he gonna argue with you about it. And one time he said something, and my grandmother said, "Not too well, as that's the biggest lie you ever told." And he said, "No, it is not. I've told plenty of lies, much bigger than that." It's like, this is not going the way you want it to. Don't divulge anything. So there were those times, but like I said, we, the family, uh, and I and my grandmother, we were so focused on uh, his mind kind of slipping, and didn't notice when it was my grandmother. I think the time I noticed it was that, there was something going on with her was I I had $100 bill. I worked in a coffee house, and so I didn't have much money, but because I stayed and I took care of him, I didn't have much money, but I did work in a coffee house, not full time. It was like privately owned, and like when I could, and tips were shitty, but you know what I mean. Um, anyway, I had $100 bill, and my grandmother used to be the secretary or the treasurer, something of the church, and she kept like money. And so I was in the house, and I said, "Graham, could you give me change for this 100? I need to go somewhere, and I didn't want to stop at the store and get change, but I needed change." And so she was like, "Oh, sure." So she goes in the back and she comes back. And I'm expecting, obviously, you know, change for the 100. And she gives me 4 quarters. You are 99 short, ma'am. I need you to go back there and do that again. Um, and so I was like, Graham, this is not actually change for 100. And she was like, what are you talking about? And kind of like I'm taking her money and blah, 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 blah. And why would I? And yeah, all the things. And I was like, what in the switcheroo is happening? So, and it got so big that for me, it was about the money and it was about, whoa, it's you too. Like in that moment, I was like, okay, like this is happening. But I still needed my 99, right? So I went next door to my grandmother's good friend's house, Miss Williams. So I knock on Mrs. Williams' door. I was like, Miss Williams, this is what's going on. And can you please just talk to her, and get my 99. So she, after I'm explaining this, she was like, you always were so sensitive. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is not about my sensitivity here. This is not about me being a Virgo. Okay. This is, her mind is kind of leaving, and my $99 is still, you know, not in my hand. So I don't remember how that worked out. I don't remember if I ever got the money. I don't remember. But after that, like after you see something, you can't not see it. So after that, it was, she asked me to to fill up her car. She asked me to fill up her car, put gas in her car. And, so I was like, okay, well, give me your shell card. So she reached in her purse and she gave me her driver's license. I actually cannot get gas with your driver's license. I need your credit card. I get gas with my driver's license all the time. No, you don't. No, ma'am, you don't. Yes, I do. I get, and then there, it's back to like I'm trying to take her money. I'm trying to steal from her. You know, and I don't know how many more times I could be called a thief, from my grandmother. And there were other, there were other signs. And it was an interesting time, if it wasn't my grandmother, accusing me of stealing, it was, my grandfather would stay up very, very, very late. My grandmother would go to bed and my grandfather would stay up late. And I would sit up with him and sometimes I would doze off. But he wanted to, sometimes at night, he wanted to make coffee. And his idea of making coffee was, they didn't have a microwave. I don't think my grandparents ever had a microwave, but they didn't have a microwave. He wouldn't have known how to operate it anyway, but his idea of making coffee was to pour the coffee from, the coffee pot into his coffee mug and put the mug on the gas burner on the stove. So I would wake up to pop, and then there'd be glass and coffee and, you know, my job to clean it. And then at the end of all that, he still ain't got his coffee. It's like, what is taking so long? I need my coffee. So there were a lot of like times like that. But after in '96, my grandfather passed, and then the very next year, in '97, my grandmother passed. But before my grand oh, after my grandfather passed, I was there was a woman from the church who needed assistance with her husband. So I was still living with my grandmother, and then I was not working at the coffee shop anymore. So I would take care of the woman from the, I forgot her name. I don't know, but I would take care of her husband, and he had Alzheimer's. But he wasn't mobile, which I'm pausing because I started to say it made it easier, but it made it easier for me, obviously not for him or his wife. I'm sure they would have much preferred him be able to walk around. But so he was not mobile or verbal. No, was he verbal? Could he talk? I don't remember, but I took care of him. And so that kind of continued my journey of kind of taking care of old folks. And then after that, I joined a few agencies. Yeah, some agencies. You know, I'll talk about, the agencies at another time on another story. But my last agency was the Pits. And so when I left them, I a woman who I call my godmother. Her name is V. Cully. If you're in Los Angeles, you probably know V. She has a friend named Curtis, and Curtis's mom needed assistance. She had dementia. She had Alzheimer's, and so I meet. And it's funny because Curtis and I'm friends with his family now, after all this time. Um, So Curtis is a black man. That's important to the story. So Curtis is a black man. So I meet Curtis outside. I pull up. This is my first day. We talk by phone, to kind of get a feel from each other for each other. But the first day we met, I pull up to his home, his house, and he met me outside. And he said, we're just talking, and we talk about like my past experiences with taking care of people with dementia. And so I said, yeah, I do like the work. I do have the patience for the work. And so he said, yeah, it does take patience, and it takes like a certain amount of, kindness. And so I was like, yeah, I am, ready for that. I am glad I did need to leave the agency. Um, and I said, I had with the agency, I had a string of really, really racist white women. And I had the patience for it, but I just was done with that. And I made a comment to him. I said, I just kind of am sick of all white women. And he said, well, my mother is white. So I said, oh, I didn't know that. So we're still outside. And I hear dogs barking. But I thought the dogs were coming from next door. And the barking startled me at one point. And I said, oh, I am very, very afraid of dogs. And so he says, oh, well, I have 3. Oh, I did not know that. And so I said, well, as long as they're outside, I guess that's not a big deal. He said, no, no, all 3 dogs stay in the living room. I'm like, I'm not sure. What in the unmatched is this? And so he has dogs, she's white, and the dogs stay in the living room. I don't know how this is going to go. But working with Miss Catherine ended up being the joy of my life. The joy of my life. Not just working with her, but working with Curtis, working with his wife Karen. And I loved the dogs. Musa, Sula, and Zinji. I loved the dogs. All of them. And they had their own like amazing personality. He was the big dog. I think he was a German Shepherd. And Musa was just very he didn't get riled up. His thing was just having peace in the house. He was very peaceful. He was old when I met him. He actually died while I was there. I mean, not like during my time there, not while I was in the house. Sula was a boxer. She was so beautiful, and she died too. And then Zinji, is Zinji still alive? Zinji is still alive. But And then Miss Catherine just walking, we would go for walks. And she had the most peaceful and beautiful spirit. We'd go for these walks. And she would kiss the flowers. And she would greet the neighborhood dogs in the gates, because I still don't play about strange dogs. So she would greet the dogs. And she liked eating Thai food. So we would go out and she'd eat Thai food. And I would say, have you had enough? And she would always say, I have dined sufficiently. Any more would be superfluous. And I love that. And I miss her. After her, much after her, like a lot, I had many clients after her. But after her, I had a client named Mr. Russell, and I loved Mr. Russell too. Mr. Russell was my friend's dad. But I worked with him. And one of the, working with Mr. Russell was like gave me an opportunity to teach someone else about the care of caregiving. So when you are a caregiver, just because you remember them, they don't remember you from yesterday or the day before or last year. You actually have to introduce yourself every day. Do you remember that movie, 50 First Dates? In the movie, Drew Barrymore? She got in an accident. I want to say it was a car accident, but I don't remember. But she was in an accident that affected her memory, her mind. And she'd met Adam Sandler. And they got in it was an old movie, so I might be saying it wrong, but had developed this, he liked her, he loved her. But she didn't remember the next day. Like the next day, she didn't remember yesterday. And so he would have to court her again. And eventually they got married. They had a baby. But he still had to meet her every day. And so one day they're on a boat, and Adam Sandler and the daughter they woke up early, and they're outside, and Drew Barrymore is still in bed. And when she woke up, there was a note or something, or that said play me, like a VHS, and it said play me. And I think she played the tape, and she sees herself with a daughter and a husband, and who are these people? What is going on? Why am I on a boat? And then she goes, and then it's at the end, she was instructed, come outside and join us. So then she goes outside and she sees this girl and this guy, and that's her husband. And it's brand new to her. It's kind of what it's like dealing with people with Alzheimer's. Sometimes with family, they're a little more familiar, but they don't all the way know you like that. So anyway, I'm working with Mr. Russell. And with Mr. Russell, we all had, how was it? Did we have a key to the door? Was it a door code? I don't remember, but we all had, he lived alone, but he had 24-hour care. So we would come in. And imagine right now you are sitting in your home, in your living room, and you're watching TV. And imagine if somebody walks into your living room with all the confidence in the world, and they just walk up to you and they're like, are you wet? And they start touching your private areas, and they start pulling your pants down, and they throw a bowl of Cheerios at you, and you're like, what the fuck? What is happening? That's how it is for them. That is how scary it is for them. So with Mr. Russell, every morning, I would say, hey, good morning, Mr. Russell. He's still what are you doing in my home, and how did you get here? Nobody's supposed to be here. He's still that, but my tone, a smile and a soft tone will go a long way. So I would, hi, Mr. Russell, what are you eating? What are you watching? I love football. Blah, 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 blah. Mr. Russell, do you need to use the restroom? You know what, Mr. Russell, would you mind if I checked this? Would you, and you know, like you're still kind of doing it, but you don't just rush in touching penises, right? Um, but, you know, I don't know why. So one day, he was in the restroom. And he did wear a diaper, but he could go to the restroom. So he's in the restroom and he's doing like the pee-pee dance. And I was like, oh shit, he has on a belt. So let me like go in there because he don't know how to take off his belt. And you know, so like I go in there and I'm like, oh, I'm trying to hurry up and take his belt off. And he said, he gives me the stiff arm Heisman. He was like, damn, it'll still be here. Like, Mr. Russell, I do not want that D from you. Okay, it's not what this is. But there were times like that. Yeah, so anyway, my opportunity to teach was the one of the nurses who would come in after me. She was nice and she was kind, but she operated like he knew her every day because she knew him for a year and a half. He don't, you know, and they don't. And it is a thankless job, you know. Thankfully, I had some good families, but you know, when a lot of times the families treat you like this is your job, do it. And the clients are like, I don't even know who you are to begin with. What are you even doing here? So, you know, it's that. Um, yeah, it's that. I'll share more sometime at some point about the agencies and stuff like that, but that's what I wanted to come on today and talk about. I hope that you are well. I hope that you are loving yourselves. I hope that you are loving your loved ones. Take care, y'all. See you tomorrow.